So it's finally time to talk more about Ghost of Tsushima since I've been playing it quite a bit compared to the last time where I actually talked about my impressions when it comes to at least to the first few hours. I thought it was a very solid game, especially considering when it comes to open world games at least. So now, have I changed my mind? Uh, yes and no, because I still think the game is very solid overall. It manages to be unique in its own way, despite being an open world game made by Sony in a world of open world games. So it manages to carve its own identity because yeah, it's a game set in Japan, so that alone makes it very atmospheric. It's a AAA game, so it has a certain budget, you can tell, but also it manages to be entertaining enough, artistically pleasing enough as well, because I think the landscapes, the graphics, the colors that you can witness in this game are very gorgeous and lively. It's one of definitely the best looking AAA games, not because of the graphics per se, because the graphics are PS4 graphics, but just when it comes to the overall artistic vision. I think they really did a good job capturing the countryside, the nature, and all that surrounds that when it comes to Japan. Granted, I also don't think that this game excels in anything other than, like I said, the artistical aspect, because the gameplay is fun. It's a very solid gameplay, but it has some flaws in my opinion. It flaws that belong to open world games as well. So it does get a little bit repetitive. That's probably its his biggest flaw when it comes to that. The combat as well can get a little bit repetitive. The stealth is not very well crafted. Like, the game gives you quite a few options in that sense, but the AI of the enemies is very on the low end, let's say. Like, it's probably even worse than what it is in Assassin's Creed, for example. So like, the stealth is not very rewarding. This is also why I barely use it unless I really have to. I prefer to just go toe to toe with the enemy. It's just more fun because they have managed to craft a combat system that rivals the one of from Arkham, from the Arkham series in that sense, which is not an easy feat because a lot of games have tried to replicate that combat system, but as far as I remember, not many have managed to do it when it comes to sword combat, like melee combat with weapons, let's say. In this game, yeah, it manages to pull it off in a good way. I guess you can argue the Shadow of Mordor games kind of did this too, but I have never played those, so I wouldn't know if they did a good job in that sense, but probably they did. So you roam the world on your trusty horse, exploring the map, collecting stuff a la Ubisoft. So finding collectibles, fighting enemies, liberating camps, and of course doing the missions, the story missions, side missions, and all that stuff. There are also a few mini games that break the pace. Those are very simple, but are like side activities that can increase your health bar, for example, or your resolve, which is an extra bar that grants you different capabilities. For example, you can heal by using resolve, or you can also use special techniques. So the game gives you a choice in that sense when it comes to resolve. And you can earn resolve by doing a bunch of stuff, by killing enemies for the most part. So, I mean, it's not a scarce resource. It's something that you'll find yourself being able to regenerate over and over. So it's fundamental for the flow of the combat and the game. The game also has like a leveling system in which you upgrade your character. So it's in that sense it's pretty well rounded, well crafted, because you can customize your character's appearance, his capabilities via talismans, which are pretty much modifiers that affect some stats of your character, and also the various outfits you unlock all have special capabilities and their own stats. So there's a lot to customize in the menus in that sense. The weapons you use are mostly, actually it is only the katana. Your main melee weapon is the katana. Then there are also other weapons, secondary weapons, extra weapons. For example, the bow. There are two types of bow. Long bow and short bow, I think. And also secondary weapons that are used mostly as a diversion. So, for example, kunais that can allow you to stun enemies briefly, or for example, smoke bombs that allow you to disappear from the enemy's radar immediately. So those are good if you want to retreat. But there are also weapons like explosives in the same category as the bow, for example. So you can throw a small explosive in an enemy's crowd to damage them, or just to scatter them. Or you can also like shoot an explosive arrow or a flaming arrow to detonate some explosives that are laying around in an enemy's camp, for example. Like, the game gives you quite a few options in that sense. It's definitely not like dull or boring, absolutely not. You can say, well, you can only use the katana, so it gets boring. No, because you can modify your fighting style, because the character has stances, so your moveset changes a little bit in that sense. Even if you only use as a main weapon the katana, you switch stances, which pretty much changes briefly your moveset. So you have 4 stances, and each stance is best suited for a specific type of enemy. So, for example, you start with the stone stance, which is the best stance to take out swordman. Then you unlock the water stance, which is best suited for shieldman. Then the wind stance for spearman, and then the moon stance for brutes. So you get slightly different moves with each stance. So each stance has a light attack with X, which is pretty much, I think, the same for all stances. What is different is the strong attacks. Kind of like Metal Gear Rising, you can say, because yeah, the X attacks, the weak attacks in Metal Gear Rising were pretty much the same with all weapons, but then the difference came into play when you actually use the strong attacks, even with the secondary weapons. And the stances are indicated, the different stances are indicated or better suited to break the guard of certain types of enemies, like I've mentioned. So you can, with those, you can stun the enemies more quickly, let's say, as opposed to using the, let's say, wrong stance, even though it's not really wrong. But yeah, you can use the wrong stance, but it will take more time to break an enemy's guard. Granted, when you're are kind of weak at the beginning, it's best just to switch stances when you fight a different type of enemy, because it will take a lot of time to break an enemy's guard otherwise. But when you have powered up all the stances and your damage, or have equipped the talismans that are pretty powerful, you can actually take on multiple enemies, different types of enemies, even with a not so greatly suited stance, let's say. So it is possible to do that. It is also quite rewarding in that sense, because it feels good to kill an enemy with the with the wrong stance, even though it's not really wrong. But yeah, you know what I mean. So as I mentioned before, the game can get a bit repetitive after a while, because you'll be doing the same things over and over. Yeah, I know it's an open world game, but still, this game, it does not escape the pitfall that many open world games fall into, like I've mentioned already. In that sense, it has been a bit of a disappointment, because at first it felt pretty original and unique due to the setting and the original take on Japan and its customs and everything. But yeah, in that sense, it's your average open world game. The DLC, as far as I've seen, is more of the same, but it tries too hard to be like too challenging. It's best if you wait a little bit to go to the DLC, because you'll get your ass kicked otherwise. The DLC adds new enemy types, which are kind of annoying, like the shamans or the big spear, the brutes that are with the double-headed spear, which are a bit of bullshit in my opinion. But it can be fun, but it's just more of the same, honestly. The main game is better from what I've seen. The DLC is fun and it's included in the director's cut, but only play it if you feel like being challenged a lot, especially if you go into the DLC at the start of the second chapter, which is not really suggested in my opinion. It's post game content, but if you wanna play nerfed in the DLC, yeah, go there at the beginning as soon as you unlock the second chapter in the main campaign. Now, what to say? Like, the story is, I mean, it's your average story. It's interesting. It's treated in a way that it's serious. It's captivating. The writing is something you will expect to see in a Japanese movie, I guess. Especially if you play with the Japanese dub. As far as I could tell, as far as I've seen, there weren't woke elements other than maybe too many women in the story. But like I said, I don't mind it. Also because they are not portrayed as stronger than the men for the most part. So it's something that's acceptable because the game tries to be somewhat realistic, even though it's not really, like I said, super realistic or historically accurate, because samurais, for example, did not really fight with their katanas unless they had to. Samurais never took out their katanas unless they were ready to die in that battle. So, but in this game, the first weapon you use is your katana. So yeah, even just for that, it's not historically accurate. But I mean, the game is fun. The female characters are okay for the most part. Um, Even though in the DLC, yeah, the main villain in the DLC is a woman, which is kind of bullshit, and bah, whatever. Like I said, the DLC is not as good as the main game, in my opinion. So the game is very atmospherical. The story treats itself seriously. There's no dumb bullshit writing. Something that you will see from leftist writers, or at least they've managed to restrain themselves in that sense. They haven't put stuff that you will expect to find in a modern game in this game in terms of writing terms that you wouldn't expect to see or that weren't a thing back in feudal Japan. That's what I mean. So the writing is, let's say, faithful to the era the game takes place in. So overall, the game, like I said, this is not trying to be like a proper review, just a mix of opinions, impressions, and if the game is worth playing. Yes, the game is worth playing. Play the game if you can, if you like these types of games, but remember that it's still an open world game with all the flaws that come with it. Buy it if you find it on sale. I mean, the game at this point the game is old, but I think Sony really did a good job. Sucker Punch really did a good job. I understand why this game caught everybody by surprise and everybody was talking about it when it came out. Is it a masterpiece? No, no, but it's a very solid game. I definitely, if I had to give this game a rating, yeah, I will definitely give it a solid 8. So play it if you can, and I'll catch you in the next video. Have a good weekend, guys. Bye bye.